Now, this week we have seen a glimpse of what a great country looks like. I'm talking about the impressive display we have all witnessed live on our TVs. The epic court battle featuring some of the best and brightest minds, legal minds I should say, on both sides of the argument in the BBI appeal. I say it is a mark of greatness, not least because the issue at play before the equally brilliant bench are so weighty that I shudder to imagine how else we would have attempted to resolve them if we did not have a functional court system in Kenya. I'm also celebrating the ongoing court process because it sets us apart from many countries around the world where the courts are at best perfunctory, at the beck and call of those in power and with no real consequences in the affairs of the nation. Indeed, veteran journalist and columnist Charles Onyango Obo had a tweet that perhaps captured the significance of the moment. Beyond the arguments and, regardless of where one stands, he said, and I quote, "Watching the BBI appeal, I wonder how many Kenyans realize that beyond the politics, they are witnessing something that barely happens in 5 other countries and in Africa, perhaps no more than 20 places in the world." End quote. And as if this wasn't enough, whoever loses at this stage, if unhappy, can still proceed to yet another level of appeal, the Supreme Court. And in the end, regardless of who loses or who wins, the courts will have discharged their functions based on the powers we gave them as a people through the 2010 Constitution. In sum, therefore, whichever side one is on, this one thing we can all agree on tonight, that this is indeed the best way to sort out our controversies, differences, and even conflicts, including those revolving around the very Constitution that gives us all these rights. Needless to say that such a display is only possible because the country boasts of a rich reservoir of brave lawyers, civil society groups, and other citizens willing to rise beyond their personal conveniences to stand up for what they believe to be right and take it before a court of law, whether the court in the end agrees with them or not. It is also made possible by a constitutional order in which might is not necessarily right, and where even the most powerful in the land must seek relief for their grievances in a court of law. That would explain why even the President of the Republic is in court defending himself. But all this is anchored on the overall belief that judges themselves are independent in their decisions, that in reaching their verdicts they are free from any outside pressures or influence. Also that they act squarely within the law and their good faith interpretation of that law, no matter how popular or unpopular their decisions might end up being. And that the judges make their decisions without fear of reprisals for simply doing their job. And above all is the confidence that all parties have, no matter who they are, that they will be heard by the courts and that a fair judgment will be rendered, and that the judgment will be binding on all, as long as it has not been overturned. That is why they have all subjected themselves to the jurisdiction of the court. And that should give us some comfort tonight. Because you see, on the back of the 2007 general election, as we all know, the opposition then, ODM, refused to go to court because in their view, the courts at the time were not independent enough to render a fair judgment. There is no need to recount the national tragedy that ensued, but such moments as we are witnessing this week must make us pause and celebrate. Celebrate what we have achieved this far, but they must also force us to imagine the alternative. In sum, the judiciary is indeed our last line of defense, and it is in our collective best interest to keep this possibility for ourselves and the generations to come. For after all, what we enjoy today wasn't always our reality. It came on the back of a long struggle, the sacrifice of many Kenyans, the loss of life and limb. We must never forget that. And that is my angle tonight.